Okay, hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Can anybody give me a thumbs up if they can hear me? There we go. Thank you, Dana. My name is Ryan Rusnak. I'm planning director here for the city of North Liberty. Appreciate everyone attending tonight. We receive zoning applications from time to time. And when we have those, we hold neighborhood meetings in order to inform the public about what's going on and see if they have any questions or comments or any feedback or anything like that. I have the property owner, who's Scanlon Family LLC representative, Jason Stone. He's on the meeting, and I'll at some point turn it over to Jason to talk over a few points, and then we'll open it up for the public to ask questions. I'm going to try and do a little bit of an intro here. I did get a couple of questions, which I appreciate, and I'm going to maybe go over some high level things here, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so good neighbor meetings allow the applicant to share details of the application, answer questions, receive feedback before we get to the planning commission. So this is really step one in the process. Hasn't gone to any public hearings or anything like that. We plan that this request will be going from the planning commission on the December 3rd. That's at 6:30 at City Hall. And then after that public hearing, it goes on to City Council. They'll consider it for 3 separate readings. So there's plenty of opportunity for public input. Don't ever feel like you just can't get a chance to say what you wanted to say today. You can always reach out to me separately. My contact info, I'll share it in a second, but it's also should be in the chat. So we value your public opinion. We want you to voice your opinion, but just note that if you want it to be part of the record, you can send it to me in writing, and an email would be just fine. Okay, so every property has a zoning designation, and you're allowed to do certain uses and have lot sizes with that. Currently, the property is zoned ID Interim Development, and that's kind of a holding pattern zoning, and allows for primarily agricultural uses. And until we are a city and we are expected to develop, and so that's kind of a holding pattern until it comes in and somebody requests a zoning to do different types of uses or different lot sizes. And the preliminary subdivision plat, which is also part of this, just lays out the general location of lots and infrastructure. So I guess sometimes I get asked questions about procedure. You know, if this gets approved in the zoning, the preliminary plat, can they start construction? No, they cannot. This just allows them to proceed to the next step. And that next step is a submission of detailed construction plans. So they show generally how things are laid out on that preliminary subdivision plat. And then really what Jason and his team over at Holland Hall will do is provide those details. We do a consistency check to make sure it meets all city codes. There's usually several rounds of review and approvals. And then once that happens, we'll issue construction plan approval, and then they can begin construction. I'm trying to manage this by myself, so I appreciate your patience. Once we get through all of this, if you have any questions, there's a little chat, just written like a little, let's see, at the top, you'll see a little like raise your hand icon toward the top. If you could click that, I'll call your name. I don't think we need to be perfect here, so I just try and keep people from talking over each other would be appreciated. If you just want to stay here and say, hey, I'm not in favor of the application, that's fine. I'm not going to say you shouldn't say that. Just shoot me a quick email. That's probably more efficient. But either way. Again, here's my contact info. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of unless I'm out of the office. Again, this will be in the chat, but if you want to chat outside of this meeting or just have general questions, or you don't feel comfortable talking here, that's fine. I get it. Just give me a call and we'll chat or shoot me an email. That's fine. Okay, I just want to go over a couple high level things that maybe sometimes, we get these requests and you're like, hey, I have different questions about what's going on in this area. And I get that. So the first question I think I had was, when will the part of Greenbelt Trail that's being constructed, when will that be done and be open to the public? And I've drawn this little line around the area that's currently being constructed. Here's Arlington Ridge over on this side. You can follow my arrow there. And then there's a trail that they're also doing here that'll come up along this side and then eventually go into the school property. Jason, I know you guys are getting close to being done with the season kind of getting colder. And do you anticipate when you think you'll be done with that part?
Yeah. So again, thanks you all for joining us. Jason Stone with Hall and Hall Engineers. As far as the addition right now that's under construction, the streets are all paved. There's a little bit of work we have left to do, paving wise. There's some trails that still need to be paved, some sidewalks, some curb ramps, a little bit of work, and I think in the detention basin. I guess with that said, we are aiming for final acceptance in December. Weather pending, it may push off into January. And franchise utilities would follow shortly after that. So we're progressing, but again, I think weather is kind of holding us back here just a little bit.
And then I think that's the point. I think that probably people will be curious that'll formally make that connection between the new section of Greenbelt and Arlington Ridge with a little bit of a zigzag because you have North Liberty Road. Okay, thank you for that.
Yep.
Let's see. Okay, so what about the other sections of the Scanlon family property? You see the areas that are in this area over here. This is the areas that are yellow and tan. These are green belts. This one here was done last year, I think it was. And then you have this section here. So, and then 3 and 4 was kind of down here and went up here. And then you've got 5, 6, and 7, which will be in this development. And then the Greenbelt 8, which we're talking about, is up here. Can you just maybe, Jason, talk about in generalities? And I'll caution everybody that when you say, well, and I suspect a lot of people will be curious, okay, when are you going to develop up here? And so the Scanlon family owns like all of this up here and even on the east side. So it's kind of an incremental development thing. I suspect they're several years out from this part. But Jason, do you want to maybe shed some light on that?
Yeah, yep. So basically the area that's in yellow, that's part of what Greenbelt Trail consists of. As Ryan mentioned, there's a little area in yellow kind of on the bottom of that square, and then the orange area off to the right-hand side. That is part 3 and 4 that we are hoping to wrap up here soon. The yellow area between where the cursor is and Arlington Ridge, those are Greenbelt sections 5 through 7. Basically, those would develop probably in about 2 or 3 phases with about 1 phase per year. As of now, obviously, market conditions kind of drive a lot of this, but part 5 could possibly start in spring of 25. But we would start on the very east side. So where that orange area is at, we would kind of work from the east and move our way to the west. With all that said, part 8 that we're looking at here today, that would probably develop last. So I'd say we're probably 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years maybe out from what we would be reviewing today. The area that's in green, kind of on the north end of the yellow and that orange, that's actually in Greenbelt Square. It's again still owned by Scanlon Family, but it's kind of a separate development. That area kind of requires some significant infrastructure before we can do much with it. One being a sewer extension that would come from the east side of North Liberty Road. So again, part 8 would be part of the Greenbelt Trail subdivision. But the kind of east of that part 8, that's an area that we're kind of just in the master planning phases right now, and there's nothing too much more than that at this time.
Okay, so can you maybe shed some light on like why, if it's 5 years out, maybe why come through this process now if you're a couple of years out?
So what we're thinking is, as we started to look at the future additions kind of in that yellow area, we determined that there's a small area which is kind of representative of part 8 that can be gravity sewered from the Greenbelt Trail area to the south, which is that yellow area. With that said, we don't have to rely on a sewer trunk extension from the east to serve that. That's one of the reasons. The second reason, I guess, being that, obviously with development, everyone's kind of concerned on what could possibly go in their backyard. And so we thought that maybe it would ease some concerns and kind of show more of a commitment to single family along the Arlington Ridge side, and kind of getting that set and kind of get it in place essentially. Once things kind of develop from there, it's going to progress to the east, likely with some additional single family. But the reason for this piece is just to kind of get things set, one, so that we can show that we're committing to the single family, but two, we can serve that area from the south and don't have to rely on that sewer extension.
Thank you for that. Let's see here. Okay, so oops, let me go back up here. Okay, so what about the Iowa City Community School District property? That's this, the Iowa City Community School District owns this area here that's highlighted in green. They have plans, I believe, to construct a K-5 school in that location. I did reach out to the school board, and they said they have no additional updates to us about when that would be constructed, so we just don't know. It's important to note here that Hemingway Drive is planned to come through this development and continue east, and I think depending on the timing of that construction is when that Hemingway Drive would come over and make connection over here to North Liberty Road. It may happen sooner, but it is a bigger element of one of the development pieces here. Okay, what else is going on in the area? So we are planning, we almost finished with design right now, but it's been in the plan for several years. We've got a grant in order to finish the trail connection, 8-foot trail on the south and west side of North Liberty Road. So it'll connect up to those sections that have been built. So that's exciting for the city's trail network. That's a big one. We're excited for that. We recognize this road's coming through here. We'll probably look at speed reductions through here. And actually what we're planning is a crossing here at the dog park. The design shows a median protected for pedestrians. We want to be able to get people safely across that street. So we looked at site distances. I think we have a pretty good plan. So the plan right now is to expand the road a little bit, have a median for a protected area for people to stand, and then have those lighted beacons for crossing. So that is in the works. That should be under construction next year. So we're excited about that. Okay, so I'm going to open up the preliminary plat now, and then just ask Jason maybe to kind of go over some of the details of it. If you can see my cursor, this areas in dark gray are kind of the other phases of Greenbelt, the 2 through 7, which we were talking about. And then this area in white is the area that's the rezoning and the preliminary plat. It seems pretty basic with roads, but Jason, you just want to kind of give an overview of that?
Yep. So basically, this part 8 is on the very north end of what was, as Ryan mentioned, is part of Greenbelt Trail. Everything in gray, has been platted. The additional area is on the north end of that. We would be extending streets to the north. There's some additional lot lines kind of faded out to the right hand side. That's just future planning. That's at this time kind of what we anticipate the street network and lot layouts to look like. But this specific area backing up to Arlington Ridge, we're going to have a total of 33 single family lots within the entire part 8. All would be single family. At this time, there's no anything unique with this, I guess I'd say grading wise. For the most part, everything that we're going to be doing here is either going to drain down to a detention basin kind of on the south end, kind of within that gray area. Or you kind of see just off on the right hand side of the page, there's kind of a gray circled area too, that's going to be a temporary detention basin to kind of serve some additional areas that can't drain to the basin that's down on the south end.
Jason, can I ask,
Yep.
just for a little bit more detail? This is a question I get a lot of times about drainage. So how do you deal with the drainage? I mean, can you negatively impact? I suspect the neighbors along that way may be concerned about, hey, I'm concerned if this development impacts my property or Arlington Ridge with stormwater. So how will you manage stormwater in your development and just so it doesn't impact your neighbors?
Yep. So basically, right along the east end of Arlington Ridge on the Greenbelt Trail property, we're going to be putting a swale kind of in the backyard of those properties. The swale would run from the very north end all the way down to the south end where that gray area is at. That would take rear yard drainage for the lots that back up to Arlington Ridge, and then take that drainage then into the detention basin that's under construction right now. The rest of the area kind of east of the lots that back up to Arlington Ridge, those would also either go into the regional base or into that detention basin, or they go into that temporary basin. I guess with that, we would have storm sewer kind of in that backyard to pick up drainage, keep things a little more dry. But the high side, I guess I would say, is right on the property line, such that all of our drainage is going to remain on the Greenbelt Trail side. Nothing will drain onto the Arlington Ridge side.
Okay, thank you. And then a couple other questions I received, which I appreciate, is can you talk about the ag fence that's currently along the east side of Arlington Ridge?
Yep. So we kind of ran into this through the addition down to the south. The intention is to remove the fence that's on the Greenbelt Trail side. We can obviously work with some homeowners if the fence kind of encroaches onto their property, and if they would like us to remove it, we can certainly do that. But at this time, the intention is to remove the entire fence.
And I always mention it's the city's requirement, just because we don't allow this. We allow metal fences in the city if they're chain link, like typically the black vinyl chain link fences that you see, but not these types of agricultural fences. But obviously, if there is any encroachment or anything like that, we'll have to get those permissions as we get closer to construction. Okay, the other question I had, which was a good one, was, Arlington Ridge has a trail network back there, and are you planning on doing connections to that trail?
Yep. So at the very north end is Radcliffe Drive, I think it is. There is a plan for sidewalk on either side of that street. That sidewalk would connect to the trail. The trail actually crosses Radcliffe right on the west end of Part 8. So we would be making a sidewalk connection to the trail from there. Though that's the only connection we were planning to make. We're not planning to make any others through side lots or anything like that. It would just be within the street right away.
Yep, and that was something the city didn't ask for because that's privately owned and maintained by Arlington Ridge. So it wasn't appropriate to, ask them to do a mid-block connection or anything like that. If Arlington Ridge is that something they desire, I think we could probably talk about that, but it wasn't anything that we looked at just because it was private.
Yeah, and I guess with that too, the sidewalk then connect to the sidewalk that's kind of adjacent to the streets within Arlington Ridge to kind of have some more connectivity between the two.
Okay. Anything else in the general sense there, Jason?
I guess a little bit more back into the drainage piece. So that circled area kind of on the right-hand side with that gray color. So that is a temporary detention basin. That will serve, the areas kind of to the north that cannot get into the detention basin that's under construction right now. So we will be installing that. That will at some point be replaced with a permanent detention basin that would be closer to North Liberty Road. Once development within that Greenbelt Square kind of proceeds or starts to kick off a little bit more, that permanent basin would be installed, and this temporary basin at that point would then go away. It's still kind of contingent on, does the sewer trunk line occur first, or does this Part 8 occur first? If the sewer extension does occur first, we would then be proceeding with development, kind of starting closer to North Liberty Road and then making our way back to the west towards Arlington Ridge. If the permanent basin does get put in before Part 8 goes through, we would not put the temporary basin in. So that's just a little bit more on the drainage aspect of it, but I guess it's just kind of one of those interim things that if one occurs before the other, that we're still kind of waiting on that.
Just this is the map that Jason had provided, but this is kind of the boundary of the sanitary sewer basin. So everything kind of in the colored area, if you will, is kind of the gravity system that flows to the south. Everything over here to the east, there's a pretty deep trunk line that has to go north of. Let's see, on the east side it goes north. What's the street there? I think it's Oak Lane there, and then then it has to go across North Liberty Road. So it's a pretty deep and expensive trunk sewer. I know the developer's been looking at costs for that, and so that's kind of an incremental thing that's pretty costly. And so also managing, these things are managed by how typically these home sites are sold. So it just seems like it's a little unclear, but there's just a lot of things that go into when they actually develop. Okay, if that's kind of our initial presentation, I think, Jason, if that's all you've got, I'd open it up to general questions that you have. Like I said, I'd ask you to try and click that little raise your hand icon if you can, and I'll see if I can recognize you here and call out your name, or if we don't have a lot of questions, we could probably just kind of ask questions and see if we can. All right, go ahead, Paul. Paul, you're muted. Let me see if I can unmute you here. Yep. You see a little microphone icon above at the top there toward the right? Did have a line cross through it. You need to.
Okay. Will the farmer be putting in crops next year?
So that'd be the intention. Yes, as far as grading goes, we're going to be looking at everything kind of as a whole, but at this time we would not be grading anything behind Arlington Ridge.
Okay.
We would be kind of sticking within that gray area.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Welcome.
Okay, don't be shy. Let's see. Dana.
Sorry, I was going to ask you to. I was going to ask you to admit me because I had to change devices, but then you did, so now I'm echoing.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
I see the path that's coming into the neighborhood along the kind of south end. They've just started kind of digging that right off of Dubuque Street. How far into the neighborhood is that going to go? And I'm sorry if you've talked about that already.
Nope. So it'll go so there's a trail on the east side of Dubuque. That's going to go from the very west end from Dubuque Street all the way to it's 7 Oaks. So it'll go all behind Arlington Ridge, all behind the Greenbelt Trail, and then connect onto 7 Oaks, which kind of runs north-south right through there. Yep. And so that trail
side here.
Yep, the trail will kind of run on the west side of 7 Oaks and then kind of run on the north side and connect over to the school property.
And the vision, we've talked to the school board about this, but there's this tract here. We'd like for the trail to come into the school property to provide a separated access for kids to get to the school. And I don't know if anybody's been down to Christine Grant. There's a trail on the west side of Christine Grant that's kind of divided from the school. Works pretty well, and it goes up to gets you into Fox Run and Cedar Springs. That's kind of the thought we had, is come into the school property, hopefully get to the north side of Hemingway Drive, and then as Hemingway Drive is constructed, having a trail on the south side of Hemingway Drive. So you've got this 8-foot wide connection that kind of goes through these subdivisions and eventually gets your way over to North W Road. That's kind of the vision that we had with this.
Where on
And
the,
so this was,
on that map
go ahead.
is the part that's already kind of dug out there? Because I just walked through there the other day, but
So
This has got to be right here.
you're right through there. Yep. So they're starting right there.
oh, I see. Okay.
Yep. As far as paving goes, obviously we're kind of fighting the weather a little bit, but I believe the intention is to start some of that paving yet this week. I'm not sure how far they'll get with it, but the intention is to try to get all of that trail done and accepted by the city yet this year.
Good, Dana?
Yep. Thank you. I just wanted to screen grab it quick. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Kelly?
Hey, kind of off of Dana's question, with that new trail that's right coming up to Dubuque Street, will there be something constructed for a safer crossing across Dubuque, whether it's at that bike trailhead or at North Juniper and Dubuque Street?
That's a great, I'll get that one, Jason. Yeah, that's a great question. Not with this project. We have been looking at long-term of doing a roundabout at Juniper and Dubuque Street. What we'd like to do is and then incorporate a crossing. The crossing's not great there. I get it. I just crossed it on Monday. And it's not great. I think it'd be a much safer situation to have a roundabout where speeds are slower, and then we would do a crossing there. That's the long-term vision there.
Yeah, that sounds good. The other question I had is about the drainage on the kind of north side along there from where the map is in this new section. For that, I think you kind of mentioned like a drainage berm of some sort and then pushing all that water. I really noticed just north of Radcliffe, we get a ton of water at that intersection of the bike path, and that's really kind of flows towards the north. There's just kind of a rut there. And so I didn't know how much more just slightly north is going to be impacted because there's no drainage down to the sewer. So if we get a big storm, it really just collects.
And is it kind of like right at that Radcliffe, right
It's
where
like just like 3 up, so it does back up against that church-owned land, but it's only, like I said, from that your map, you're probably just one more lot, shy of it.
is it right where your cursor is, Ryan?
Yeah, and you can kind of see
right.
that water line kind of pushing away that way, and then from the other side, it goes the
Yeah.
opposite way. And it really just kind of sinks down.
So if there's any water coming off of that church property on over to this, they'll have to take that water into their development and bring it into their system.
Yeah, and I think for
So
the
you
most
can't
part,
just go ahead.
I was going to say that the church kind of drains from that the property kind of drains from that southwest corner up to the northeast. So we're not necessarily showing any grading on that property, but we will obviously be making everything on our property drain more efficiently if that's a concern kind of on that south end, or I guess on the north end of Radcliffe.
Mm-hmm. And then any update from you guys on that land, if that's just still no plans for any development yet?
No, I've talked to a few people about long-term development. We think it's obviously we have the roads. We had a comment that we wanted the roads dubbed there, which they provided to facilitate future development. We did ask if they thought the gravity sewer, if this could be brought down into there. They didn't think it could. So it's more likely that the trunk line that comes up over on this side is going to have to come up and feed it this way. So I think that we talk about development being incremental, and this is kind of on that north side of that incremental type development. It's going to take a while to get there.
Thanks.
Okay, Andy.
All right, I just had a question. So the new bike path that was connected to Dubuque Street, they put a new storm drain in that connects into the pond. What all is going to be feeding that? One, is that just the farm field coming into that to feed that? And two, they drained a lot of water out of it, and this time of year, not the best time for, I guess, fish and freezing over. So if it ices over, like who's on if we have a fish kill in the spring? Is that on them to restock or just on that?
Yep. So as far as that storm sewer goes, the drainage that's going to go down to it, it connects into the pond. It'll take on a very, very small area kind of on the Greenbelt Trail property. There's a small swale. But for the most part, it does just take on drainage from the field to the south. I think that area down at that corner it's very, very flat. Looks like water maybe just kind of sits there. So we have sized things appropriately to get that drainage into the storm sewer and then into the pond. The pond was pumped down a little bit so that they could get the storm sewer in. They have to put a flared end section to kind of dump into that pond, and with that, there's a little bit of a toe wall that goes underneath of it. And so the reason they pumped it down a little bit was to allow that toe wall to get put in. I believe it's all done. I guess I'd have to check with a contractor, but I did speak with them a couple days ago, and it sounded like they were working on it at that time.
So is that something that if just let's say there's a future development on the other side of Greenbelt, is that something they're going to tie into? So we'd be taking more onto the pond because when we get heavy rains, just as now, it already goes up to the white fence when it gets high. I don't know if we're going to be taking more on in that area with future development of the other side of the sidewalk.
I guess I'd say that's an area where everything does kind of drain down to that corner. If development does occur down on that side of Arlington Ridge, as part of the city requirements, they'd be required to put in a detention basin. So basically, that'll kind of slow down or release the water at a slower rate. Now, whether they take it into our storm sewer or they take it into the street right away, I guess that's kind of up to that designer. But at this time, we did not extend any storm sewer pipe to that field. So if they were to make some sort of connection onto ours, that designer would need to look at that to see if that's even a viable option.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Good question. Okay, anybody else?
All right. So as of now, again, sorry, Yorkshire will not probably be open during this winter season then for snow removal.
No, I think it will. Yeah, I think it will. I they're getting close to getting finished with the paving. Sometimes with this, we're in Iowa, so we know winter's coming. We go through, here's the process for development. So once they develop, we will go out and then they tell us, hey, they'll give us as-built drawings to show how everything was constructed with elevations. We will review that. We'll go out and inspect the paving and all the work they've done. It's going to be dedicated to the public. Typically, we give them a punch list and say, hey, these things need to be fixed. And then it gets onto the city council agenda for acceptance. And then we plat these lots. So I would expect that Yorkshire would be open, if not late this year, probably early part of 2025. But I fully expect that connection to be made.
And like I said, we are very, very close. I guess I'd say at this point we've kind of done this in two different phases. So the trail and sidewalks are kind of what they're working on now. The street is done. Most of the utilities are done. But like I mentioned, weather pending, we're hoping to get everything kind of within the final acceptance either in December or January.
See if I can. I'll copy my contact info. Wait, let's see. Copy my info and put it down at the bottom here again. So my contact info is at the bottom of the chat. Feel free to give me a call or email me. Again, if you have additional questions, something you didn't think about, or you have formal comments or something like that, that's fine. Reach out anytime. Like I said, this is a pretty decent process for public input and public hearings. So again, we go to planning commission and we've got 3 different city council meetings. So, okay, these parts are always weird. We got to wait and have silence, but I'm going to give maybe a last call for any more questions or comments or anything like that. See any hand raises. So, okay. Jason, anything else?
Nope, I don't have anything else.
And if people weren't able to attend this meeting, what we do on our Good Neighbor meeting page is give us a day or so. What we do is post this recording, and it'll be online, so people can view it and play back if they were not able to meet this meeting. So thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you taking the time for this. Jason, thanks for putting this on. We appreciate it. And
Appreciate it.
And again, Planning Commission on December 3rd at 6:30 p.m. at the new City Hall. If you haven't been by the new building, come check it out. It's pretty cool. Let's see the chat. Oh, there's one question. Any idea on square footage of homes?
That I don't know, but I would say it'd probably be pretty similar to what you're kind of seeing out there within part 2. The lot sizes are kind of in that same realm.
Okay, good. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Appreciate it, and have a good evening, and appreciate you taking time out of your evening. Thank you so much.